So, Snowflake, why are you here today?
Well, I'm from Lake Winnipeg, and I'm swimming all over the watershed of Lake Winnipeg to highlight all the issues that are facing the watershed. Because anything that flows into a river, that flows into Lake Winnipeg, flows into Lake Winnipeg. So such things as the proposed gravel pit at Sturgeon Hole Reach, which is important spawning ground, that's going to affect my cousins. I don't want this to happen. We need to protect the rivers to protect me and my kin.
Do you need a drink of water right about now?
I'm good. I've got a little tank hiding in the backpack.
Good. You must have a lot of cousins.
Unfortunately, not that many. We're very endangered, and all 29 species of sturgeon around the world are endangered. We survived the extinction that wiped out the non-avian dinosaurs, and yet we're facing extinction now. So we need all the help we can get, and to help us protect the rivers and streams, because that's our home.
Thanks, Snowflake.
Well, having fought 2 gravel pits now and successfully defeated them, what we have found is that unless your legislation is very ironclad and there are no soft words in it, there's always going to be that risk of development and industrial and commerce within city boundaries. We found there's a lot of support. The public has a lot of support for keeping the river healthy. But when it comes to the words in the legislation to block that development, there isn't a lot around that. And I think unless something gets put in place, you're always at risk. For example, our application, the application that was threatening the river that we were opposing, there was one simple word. It was called essential service. And it was deemed that gravel was an essential service to the building of Henday, which we successfully proved that it wasn't. But its wording within the legislation has to be very firm.
Mm-hmm. And have you actually been in talks with the government about this particular issue?
We have kept the government appraised, the different departments that need to be, both at a civil and a provincial level, and we've got a lot of support even at the provincial level. And I guess it's a matter of taking it to the next step and getting legislation in place. It's fine to have support, and it's fine to have visions, but visions and support don't help you when it's a matter of an application to do something in a particular area. That's when the regulations kick in.
Do you have a professional background or something in this particular area?
Well, I have a background in civil engineering and river engineering and fluid dynamics. I haven't. That was just the first part of my career, and then I moved into technology. But it was enough that I understand and appreciate some of the background that goes into keeping the health of the river and what the river can do for a community.
And is there anything else that you'd like to share about this?
Well, I just think that it's we have to be cognizant that important preservation takes a set of milestones. It's not one big huge event. And I like to think of the example of Horlek. Horlek was a series of events and support milestones that created the park. It was actually once deemed by the local paper as being a white elephant, which is kind of unfathomable today. How could anyone consider that jewel to be something that could turn to be dump, but from a dump into a parkland? But turning a river into a protected area and putting the legislation in place takes one piece at a time, and it will get there through a series of steps. And I think it's important that we keep a strong vision and we keep pushing on that, because then when you're looking back in 50 years, when future generations are looking back, they'll say, wow, that was pretty prescient that people put that stuff in place. Even though it seems small now, we have to make sure that the legislation and regulations that are required to support this are in place, and we continue to push for that.
So, I feel that right now that wildlife is kind of under siege in Alberta. Disappearance of the caribou, the wolf cull, there's coyote killing contests going on, and on and on. And I think this is just another part of that where we're just not taking wildlife into account, and that's really my major concern.
So fish is not your only concern. You see this as a broader issue.
Absolutely, it's a broader issue that we seem to be neglecting wildlife and wild lands in Alberta, and just sort of bulldozing our way around, killing wolves to save the caribou, and not taking into account what these gravel pits are doing to endangered wildlife.
So, except for rallying, and you can do what you can, but what do you think should be done in Albertan society to prevent that?
Well, I absolutely think that endangered animals have to be taken into account when we go ahead with some kind of development, and it doesn't appear that that's what's happening here. I'd like to see all wildlife get treated with respect, but when you have an animal that's endangered, I think then we have to step up to the plate and say, no, this has to, be looked into a lot more closely.
And we're out here today because, the revelations of how fish populations in the North Saskatchewan have declined due to the mixed core gravel disaster. It's kind of like we need to just have that inquiry into why this happened, and also public hearings in order to improve the regulations around gravel pits. And kind of like a good example of why we need to have better regulations is the proposed Burnco gravel mine by Sturgeon Hole Reach, which is an environmentally significant area because it's rated as a Class A water body because of sturgeon spawning ground. And all species of sturgeon, like all 29 species of sturgeon, are endangered, including the lake sturgeon, which is the one that lives in the river here. And last count I saw, there's only like about 1,000 adults in the North Saskatchewan, and it used to be that there were like thousands upon thousands. The Sturgeon River is named after the fact that there was a sturgeon fishery, and we need to protect the land, because the land is everything everywhere that flows into a water body is part of that water body. So you get the rain, it flows, whatever's on the land gets washed into the river. And
are you asking for something precisely, or is it more of a critic of the lack of regulation?
The lack of regulation. I say, I used to say, in May we voted for change, and we wanted to see change after 40 years of mismanagement. And this is one of the things that needs to be changed, is that we need better regulations around all developments. It's kind of been this attitude that if you can make a buck, you get approved. And we need to have better protection, because if you love this province and love what's in the province, like all the wildlife here, you want to see it protected. And you want to be able to go go diving with fish, and going out and seeing birds and bears. And
do you have hopes that there's going to be change, there's going to be regulation change?
I'm very hopeful. There's been a change in government, which was the first step, and now we just have to get them going in the, as I say, to the left and green direction.
You think they're going to do it?
The more pressure we put on them, and we're going to be doing it. This is just the start.